Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're doing a bit of an analysis on how attributes develop and when you should expect each player to develop in each area of their game at what age, and how high you should expect the average player to get. So, if you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you'll probably know how much I like spreadsheets, and that's exactly what I've cut this one up into too. We're going to go through the age groups in tiers of 4 years, so starting off at 16 to 19, and then 20 to 23, and so on, and we're going to go through the potential pace, passing, shooting, dribbling, physical and defending changes that you should expect in each one of these age groups. Each one of the age groups will peak in something different, and some of the age groups will actually have surprising peaks. For example, over 30-year-olds will actually peak in 4 of these different areas at the same time, so it might not be worth throwing away your oldies before you've got the best out of them. Anyway, let's begin with the teenagers. As you'd expect, teenagers on FIFA have the highest potential on average, averaging around a 73 to 74 on their potential stat. Their pace isn't quite as high as it peaks in the mid-20s, but the passing, shooting, dribbling and physical stats are all horrific compared to how well they develop around 10 years later. Defending is probably the worst hit as well, with an average 16 and 17-year-old having 40 defending compared to the average 34-year-old having 58. So you can see that a teenager might not be that important to your team even if they do have interesting stats. Moving on to the next age band, this is where you'll start to see players peak in their pace. Their potential will be a bit lower than it was when they were younger, but their passing, shooting, dribbling, physical and defending are all about 4 to 5 points higher on average than when they were teenagers. The pace is starting to peak and doesn't quite peak until the next age band at 25 years old, when the average player will have 70.24 pace. I think this is pretty interesting because most players think of early 20s to really be the peak of pace, and especially if you've got a youth academy player, that's when they'll peak. So maybe this is something EA needs to look at when they're developing youth academy player systems in the future. Moving on to the late 20s, and this is when a player's dribbling will start to peak. 27 years old is the highest it will get, and the pace will still be high too, so this is probably the age you're going to want to have your wingers playing at. Their strength and stamina will both be pretty high as well, because physical starts to peak here too, before finally peaking at 31 years old. This is probably the age group you'll expect your player to be at the full peak of their powers, with only a few more points in passing, shooting and defending still to come. These points come in this next age group, which is the 30 plus. So as soon as you hit 31, EA says you lose 3 pace. You gain a couple of shooting, passing, dribbling and physicals, and your defending only just goes up a slight bit. I think it's harsh getting rid of that much pace just because you've turned 31, but the bigger drop comes when you hit 34, where you lose nearly 4.5 pace between 33 and 34 years old. This only gets worse. The average 41-year-old has 36 pace, which is nearly half what you have at 25 years old, where the average is 70.2. I'm not sure a player really loses this much pace, but I've seen it happen in real life where a player literally can just lose 10 pace over one summer break, so maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on EA there. However, if you want an all-round midfielder and you don't mind losing 10-15 pace, the peak age to have a player is at 32 years old. As soon as you hit 33 you lose a bit more pace, so 32 you've still got a decent amount at 64 pace. You'll have your best shooting, dribbling, passing, physical and nearly be at the peak of defending too, so this is really the best age to have a player. If they already start off with a high pace, it probably won't have got that too far down either. If they have 90 pace in their prime, it'll probably be around the high 70s to low 80s when they're 32 years old, so definitely worth having a look for players at this age that you might not have considered otherwise. I don't think I mentioned it at the start, but these stats are all from the default database, so this does not include youth academy players, which will be peaking a lot earlier on every count. I think this is due to the 15 season limit, but in my experiments I've done, pace peaks around 22 for a youth academy player. They peak on all the other stats about 5 years earlier, and they've retained their ability a lot better than the default stats that are in the database to start off with. So if you're using youth academy players, just take 3 or 4 years off all of these peak ages, so that's pace at 25, passing at around 32, shooting, dribbling, physical all around the late 20s too, and then defending peaks at 34. So just take 4 years off this and you'll have around where a youth academy player will peak. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a very different one, and if you made it this far, you're obviously a big fan of spreadsheets, so well done, appreciate it, and yeah, hope you liked the video, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, bye.